The elevator climbed toward the executive floor of Blackwood Industries, each floor lighting up like a countdown to Maya Rodriguez's execution. Her reflection in the polished steel doors showed everything she tried to hide: the sleepless nights, the mounting bills, the desperation that clung to her like cheap perfume. Today was her last chance. If she couldn't secure this contract, her architectural firm would be nothing more than a beautiful dream crushed under debt. Floor 47, the elevator announced in its clinical voice. Maya's heels clicked against marble as she walked through the reception area, clutching her portfolio like a shield. The space screamed money with its floor 2 ceiling windows, overlooking Manhattan, an abstract art that probably cost more than her annual rent. She'd researched everything about Blackwood Industries, memorized their recent projects. Andy Vaughn practiced her pitch in front of her bathroom mirror until her voice went hoarse. What she hadn't prepared for was him. The conference room doors opened, and Maya's carefully rehearsed words died in her throat. The man standing with his back to her, silhouetted against the city's skyline, had shoulders she recognized, dark hair that she'd run her fingers through, a presence that had haunted her dreams for 3 weeks. He turned around, and those impossible blue eyes met hers. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, his voice carrying that same husky quality that had whispered her name in a darkened hotel room. "I'm Ethan Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Industries." The portfolio slipped from Maya's suddenly numb fingers, architectural drawings scattering across the conference table like fallen leaves. This couldn't be happening. The universe couldn't be this cruel. "We've met," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's expression remained perfectly professional, but she caught the slight tightening around his eyes, the almost imperceptible pause before he spoke. "I don't believe we have." Liar. Beautiful, devastating liar. Maya bent to gather her scattered drawings, her hands trembling as she remembered another morning, another cleanup. Silk sheets instead of architectural plans. His gentle hand shelved her dress while paparazzi cameras flashed outside the plaza. Hotel. The promise he'd whispered against her ear that everything would be okay. 3 weeks of silence said otherwise. "Perhaps we should begin," Ethan said, settling into the chair across from her with the kind of controlled grace that spoke of boarding schools and country clubs. "I understand you're here about the Riverside development project." Maya straightened her drawings with mechanical precision, using the familiar ritual to steady herself. She was a professional. She'd built her firm from nothing, survived in a male-dominated industry, and clawed her way into this room through sheer determination. She wouldn't let him see how much he'd shattered her. "The Riverside project represents everything wrong with modern urban development," she began, her voice finding its strength. "Generic glass towers that ignore community needs, environmental impact, and architectural soul." Something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Interest, maybe, a recognition that the woman sitting across from him wasn't going to be easily dismissed. "And you think you can do better?" His tone was neutral, but she heard the challenge underneath. Maya spread her designs across the table, her passion overriding her personal turmoil. "I know I can. These aren't just buildings. They're communities. Mixed-income housing integrated with green spaces. Glazed. Architecture that honors the neighborhood's history while embracing its future." She watched him study her work, those long fingers tracing the lines of her drawings. The same fingers that had traced her skin in the early morning light. Maya's breath caught as he leaned closer, his cologne stirring memories of tangled sheets and whispered confessions. "This is ambitious," he said finally. "Beautiful, even. But beauty doesn't guarantee profits. Neither does soulless development," Maya shot back. "But sustainable design that brings communities together, does that create lasting value beyond quarterly earnings? That's what builds legacy." The word legacy hung between them like a challenge. Ethan looked up from her drawings, and for a moment his corporate mask slipped. She saw the man who'd told her about growing up in boardrooms instead of playgrounds, who'd confessed his fear of becoming just another Blackwood heir, destroying everything he touched. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said carefully, "your proposal is compelling, but I have to ask. What makes you think a small firm like yours can handle a project of this magnitude?" The question hit like a slap. Maya felt her cheeks burn as she realized what this was: not a legitimate business meeting, but a game. A way for him to feel better about ghosting her by proving she was nothing more than a naive dreamer. Because, she said, standing slowly, unlike some people, I don't abandon projects when they become complicated. The words landed exactly as she intended. Ethan's jaw tightened, and she saw her own pain reflected in his eyes before he shuttered them again. I think we're done here, he said, his voice ice cold. Maya gathered her drawings, her movements deliberate and controlled. At the door, she turned back, needing to say what had been burning in her chest for 3 weeks. For what it's worth, Mr. Blackwood, I really did think you were different. She walked out without looking back, but she felt his gaze following her until the elevator doors closed. Only then did she allow herself to breathe, to feel the full weight of what had just happened. The man she'd fallen for in one impossible night was about to become her biggest professional nightmare, unjudging. By the look in his eyes, he planned to enjoy every minute of her destruction. Maya's phone buzzed as she sat in her car outside Blackwood Industries, still shaking from the encounter. The caller ID made her stomach lurch. Maya Rodriguez Architecture, she answered, proud that her voice didn't crack. Ms. Rodriguez. This is Jennifer Walsh from Blackwood Industries. Mr. Blackwood would like to schedule a follow-up meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Maya gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. I'm sorry, but I think there's been a mistake. The meeting didn't go well. Mr. Blackwood specifically requested you, Ms. Rodriguez. He's very interested in your proposal. The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at her phone in confusion. What game was Ethan playing now? She drove back to her cramped office in Brooklyn, her mind spinning. Her assistant Carmen looked up from her desk, hope written across her young face. How did it go? Did we get it? Maya couldn't bring herself to crush that hope. Not yet. Want another meeting? Carmen whooped, spinning in her chair. Your designs are incredible. This is going to save us, Maya. If only it were that simple. Maya locked herself in her office and pulled up Ethan's file again, studying the photos that had been splashed across every business magazine for years. Ethan Blackwood, the golden air hood, revolutionized sustainable technology. The man who'd disappeared from public life 6 months ago only to resurface the morning after their night together, the morning he'd promised to call. Her laptop chimed. With an email from an unknown address, no subject line, just a message that made her blood run cold. The Riverside project presentation is tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't disappoint me. Maya's hands flew over the keyboard, typing and deleting a dozen responses before settling on 2 words. I won't. The next morning, Maya arrived at Blackwood Industries armed with a revised presentation and a battle plan. She'd spent all night perfecting her designs, incorporating sustainability features that would make the project irresistible to any board focused on environmental responsibility. But when she walked into the conference room, she wasn't facing just Ethan. 5 board members sat around the mahogany table like judges at a trial. Maya recognized Thomas Blackwood Sr., Ethan's father, from newspaper photos, the man who'd built the Blackwood empire with ruthless efficiency and old-world charm. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit impeccable, but his eyes held the same cold intelligence as his son. Ms. Rodriguez, Thomas said, rising with practiced courtesy. I've heard interesting things about your proposal. Ethan sat at the far end of the table, his expression unreadable. He hadn't looked at her once since she'd entered the room. Gentlemen, Maya began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Thank you for this opportunity. The Riverside development represents more than just construction. It's a chance to redefine how corporations engage with communities. She launched into her presentation, her passion overriding her nerves. She spoke about environmental sustainability, community integration, and long-term economic benefits. The board members asked sharp questions, but Maya held her ground, defending every design choice with data and conviction. Impressive, Thomas said when she finished. But I have concerns. About your firm's capacity? This is a $100 million project, which is exactly why it needs the personal attention my firm provides, Maya countered. Larger firms treat projects like this as assembly line work. I treat them as legacy pieces. Legacy, Thomas? Repeated, glancing at his son. An interesting word choice. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Ethan finally spoke. "I'd like to propose a trial period. Give Ms. Rodriguez 30 days to present a comprehensive development plan. If it meets our standards, we'll consider moving forward." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was a chance wrapped in what felt suspiciously like a trap. "And if it doesn't meet your standards?" she asked. Ethan's smile was sharp as a blade. "Then you'll understand why we chose a more established firm." After the board members filed out, Maya found herself alone with Ethan. The silence was deafening. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why? What? Why give me this chance? We both know you could have ended this yesterday." Ethan moved to the windows, his hands clasped behind his back. "Maybe I'm curious to see what you're really made of. Or maybe you're setting me up to fail so you can feel better about what happened between us." He turned then, and the naked pain in his eyes caught her off guard. "You think I wanted this? You think I enjoy having you here? Reminding me of everything I can't have? Can't have?" Maya's voice rose despite herself. "You chose not to have it. You disappeared without a word, Ethan. You made me feel like nothing more than a one-night mistake, 'cause that's what it had to be." The words exploded out of him. "Do you have any idea what my life is like? No. What being with me would cost? You, the media attention alone, would destroy everything you've built. That should have been my choice to make." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Choice? You think there's choice in this world? My father has been grooming me since birth to take over this company. Every relationship, every decision, every breath I take is calculated for maximum corporate benefit. There is no choice, Maya. There's only duty." Maya stepped closer, seeing the man behind the CEO mask. "And that's exactly why your Riverside project will fail. Because you've forgotten what it means to care about something beyond profit margins. In stock prices, maybe," he said quietly. "Or maybe you'll remind me." The air between them crackled with tension, with words unspoken and desires barely leashed. Maya felt herself leaning toward him, drawn by the same magnetic pull that had led her to his hotel room. Her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Text from Carmen. "Emergency at the office. Landlord here with eviction notice." Reality crashed back over Maya like ice water. She'd been playing emotional games with Ethan. Her business was literally falling apart. "I have to go," she said, grabbing her portfolio. "Maya, wait." She stopped at the door but didn't turn around. "Days, Mr. Blackwood, and then we'll see who's really made of what." As the elevator carried her down, Maya caught her reflection in the polished doors again. But this time, instead of desperation, she saw determination. Ethan Blackwood thought he could manipulate her, use her feelings against her. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. 2 weeks into the 30-day trial, Maya's life had become a carefully orchestrated chaos. She'd managed to negotiate a payment extension with her landlord, but only after promising the Blackwood contract was guaranteed. Carmen worked 80 an hour, days surviving on coffee and determination, while Maya herself had barely slept. The Riverside project consumed her every waking moment. But it wasn't just the architecture that kept her awake. It was Ethan. He'd taken to appearing at unexpected moments. Sometimes she'd find him at the construction site, talking to workers in a way that revealed depths she hadn't expected. Other times he'd materialize at her favorite late-night diner, sliding into the booth across from her as if they were old friends instead of former lovers, playing a dangerous game. "You look terrible," he said, during one such encounter, his voice carrying concern despite his casual tone. Maya didn't look up from her laptop screen. "Flattery will get you everywhere, Mr. Blackwood. When's the last time you went home, actually? Slept in a bed instead of your office couch. Since when do you care about my sleeping arrangements?" The words came out sharper than she intended, loaded with memories of silk sheets and morning light. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I care about the quality of work you're producing. Exhausted architects make mistakes. Is that what you tell yourself?" Maya finally looked up, meeting his gaze across the Formica table. "That everything you do is just business?" Before he could answer, her phone rang. Carmen's panicked voice filled the space between them. "Aju, you need to get back here now. There's been an accident at the Riverside site. Someone's been hurt. The diner became a blur as Maya grabbed her things, Ethan following close behind. They reached his car first, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary. "Get in," he said, already starting the engine. "I'll drive." The construction site buzzed with ambulances and police cars, their lights painting the half-built structures in shades of red and blue. Maya's heart hammered as she spotted the victim being loaded into an ambulance. James Murphy, one of her most experienced contractors, was conscious but clearly injured. "What happened?" Maya demanded, approaching the site foreman. "Scaffolding. Collapse on the east wing," the foreman explained. "Jimmy was checking the foundation when it came down. Could have been much worse." Maya's knees nearly buckled with relief that it wasn't fatal, but guilt quickly followed. This was her project, her responsibility. She watched the ambulance disappear into traffic, carrying away not just an injured worker, but potentially her entire future. "Ms. Rodriguez," a voice called behind her. She turned to find Detective Sarah Chen approaching, her expression professionally neutral. "I'm going to need to ask you some questions about the site safety protocols." The next hour passed in a haze of questions, insurance forms, and growing dread. Maya's safety record had been impeccable until now, but she knew how quickly accidents could destroy a small firm's reputation. "The preliminary investigation suggests equipment failure," Detective Chen finally said. "But we'll need to conduct a full review before the site can reopen." Maya nodded numbly, watching her crews pack up their tools. Weeks of work gone. Her timeline shattered. The Blackwood contract slipping away like water through her fingers. "Maya." Ethan's voice was gentle, his hand warm on her shoulder. "Come on, let me take you home." She wanted to resist, to maintain her professional distance, but exhaustion weighed her down like lead. She let him guide her to the car, sinking into the leather seats with a sigh that seemed to come from her soul. "The hospital," she said quietly. "I need to check on James, of course." They drove in silence through Manhattan traffic, the city lights blurring past like fallen stars. At the hospital, they learned that James had suffered a broken leg and some bruising, but would recover fully. The relief was overwhelming, but it did nothing to solve Maya's larger problem. "The project's finished," she said as they stood in the hospital parking lot. "Even if the investigation clears me, I've lost too much time. Your board will never approve an extension." Ethan studied her face in the harsh fluorescent lighting. "Is that what you think? That I'd use this accident as an excuse to abandon you?" Maya's voice was hollow with exhaustion and disappointment. "It's the perfect out. You can return to your safe, predictable world without the complication of having feelings for your architect." "Feelings?" Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping to that husky whisper she remembered from their night together. "You think this is about feelings, isn't it?" The space between them crackled with tension, with all the words they hadn't said and the touches they'd denied themselves. Maya felt herself swaying toward him, drawn by the same magnetic pull that had led her to his hotel room. "Maya," he breathed, his hands framing her face. "You have no idea what you do to me." This time, she didn't stop herself from leaning into his touch. His lips met hers with desperate hunger, 3 weeks of separation and denial pouring into the kiss. Maya's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing to feel something real in a day that had gone completely sideways. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This is insane," Maya whispered. "We can't do this." "I know," Ethan replied, but his hands didn't leave her face. "I know we can't. I know all the reasons why this is impossible, but I can't seem to care about any of them when you look at me like that." Maya closed her eyes, trying to center herself. "The project, your board, your father will all be there tomorrow," Ethan finished. "Tonight I just want to make sure you're okay." It was such a simple offer, but Maya heard the complexity underneath. Ethan Blackwood didn't just want to make sure she was physically safe. He wanted to take care of her, to be the man she'd glimpsed in their hotel room, instead of the corporate prince everyone expected him to be. One night, she heard herself say, "Just tonight, can we pretend none of the rest of it matters?" Ethan's smile was answer enough. He took her hand, leading her back to the car. And Maya let herself believe that sometimes, just sometimes, choice could triumph over duty. But as they drove through the city toward his penthouse, neither of them noticed the photographer in the shadows, capturing every moment of their reunion. By morning, their private moment would be splashed across every gossip site in the city, and the real consequences of their connection would finally come to light. Maya woke up in Ethan's penthouse to the sound of her phone buzzing incessantly. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden patterns across the hardwood floors and highlighting the tangled sheets around her naked body. For a moment, she let herself remember the night before. Ethan's gentle hands, the way he'd whispered her name like a prayer, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to make this work. Then she saw the phone screen. 17 missed calls from Carmen, 23 text messages, 5 voicemails from numbers she didn't recognize. Oh God, Maya breathed, sitting up so quickly the room spun. Ethan appeared in the doorway, coffee, mug in hand, hair still rumpled from sleep. He took one look at her face and set the mug down. What is it? Ami's hands shook as she opened the first text from Carmen. It contained a single link to a gossip website. The headline made her stomach plummet. Blackwood heirs secret affair. CEO caught in steamy reunion with mystery architect. The photos were damning. Maya and Ethan kissing in the hospital parking lot, their passion obvious even in grainy paparazzi shots. Ethan's hands in her hair, her body pressed against his. The desperate hunger in their faces clear for the entire world to see. They know who I am, Maya whispered, scrolling through increasingly aggressive headlines. They've connected me to the Riverside Project, to my firm, to everything. Ethan moved to look over her shoulder, his face going pale as he read. Blackwood Industries CEO gives $100 million contract to secret lover. Is this the real reason Maya Rodriguez got the job? From one-night stand to corporate corruption, Maya's phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Janet Kim from Channel 7 News. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to tell your side of the story regarding your relationship with Ethan Blackwood and the Riverside development contract. Maya hung up without speaking, but the phone immediately rang again. Different reporter, same invasive questions. Turn it off, Ethan said gently, reaching for the device. I can't. Maya's voice was thick with rising panic. My business, Carmen. The contract. This is going to destroy everything I've worked for. Her laptop chimed with an email from Thomas Blackwood Sr. The subject line read, Emergency Board Meeting, 10 a.m. Maya read the message twice, each word hitting like a physical blow. The board was convening to discuss irregularities in the contractor selection process and potential conflicts of interest that may compromise the company's reputation. They're going to fire me, Maya said, the reality settling over her like ice water. Your father is going to use this as an excuse to give the contract to someone else, and my firm will be finished. Ethan's jaw tightened. No, I won't let that happen. How can you stop it? Look at these photos, Ethan. Look at what they're saying. Every decision you made regarding my contract is now suspect. Your board has no choice but to distance themselves from me. Maya stood abruptly, gathering her scattered clothes from the night before. She needed to get home, needed to salvage what she could of her professional reputation before it was completely destroyed. Maya, wait. Ethan caught her arm. Can fix this. I'll talk to the board. Explain that our personal relationship has nothing to do with your qualifications. Our personal relationship? Maya's laugh was bitter. Is that what you're calling it? It's because from where I'm standing, it looks like I just proved every misogynistic assumption about women in business. That we sleep our way to the top instead of earning it. No, that's not true. What I know doesn't matter. The words exploded out of her. What matters is perception, and right now, the perception is that I'm an opportunistic architect who seduced the CEO to get a contract I didn't deserve. Ethan's face went hard. So what are you saying? Last night was a mistake. Maya met his eyes, her heart breaking even as she forced the words out. Last night was the biggest mistake of my professional life. She saw him flinch as if she'd slapped him, but she couldn't take it back, not when her entire future hung in the balance. I have to go, Maya said, grabbing her purse. I have to try to save what's left of my career. She made it to the elevator before Ethan caught up with her. Maya, please, Don't let them do this to us. The elevator doors opened, and Maya stepped inside, turning to face him one last time. There is no us, Ethan. There can't be. We both knew that from the beginning. The doors closed on his stricken expression, and Maya allowed herself exactly 30 seconds to cry before pulling herself together. She had a business to save and a reputation to rebuild. But when she arrived at her office, Carmen was waiting with more devastating news. The site inspector called, Carmen said, her young face pale with worry. The accident investigation found code violations. Our permit's been suspended pending a full review. Maya sank into her desk chair, the weight of complete professional collapse pressing down on her. In less than 24 hours, she'd lost the biggest contract of her career, had her reputation destroyed by tabloid speculation, and now faced potential legal action over safety violations. Her phone buzzed with another call from an unknown number. This time she answered. Maya Rodriguez.
Oh, Ms. Rodriguez.
This is Marcus Webb from Architectural Digest. I'm calling about the Blackwood scandal. Would you care to comment on allegations that you used sexual favors to secure the Riverside development contract? Maya hung up, her hands shaking with rage and humiliation. But before she could process the call fully, Carmen appeared in her doorway again. Maya, she said quietly, there are reporters outside. A lot of them. Maya could see the crowd gathering. Maya could see the crowd gathering on the sidewalk. Cameras, microphones, and hungry faces, all waiting for their chance to tear apart what remained. Of her dignity, she was trapped, professionally destroyed, personally humiliated, and surrounded by vultures eager to pick apart her mistakes. But as Maya sat in her chair, staring at the chaos outside her window, something shifted inside her. The panic began to crystallize into something harder, more determined. They wanted to paint her as a victim or a villain. Fine, but she wouldn't go down without a fight. Maya Rodriguez had built her firm from nothing once. She could do it again. And if Ethan Blackwood thought she would quietly disappear to protect his precious reputation, he was about to learn just how wrong he could be. 3 months later, Maya stood before the New York City Planning Commission. A revised proposal for the Riverside development spread across the presentation table. The room was packed beyond capacity with community members, city officials, and yes, reporters who'd been following the story since the scandal broke. She'd spent the past 90 days rebuilding everything from scratch. New investors, new contractors, new reputation. The permit violations had been cleared after a thorough investigation revealed faulty equipment from the previous contractor, not her oversight. Most importantly, she'd secured independent financing that meant she no longer needed Blackwood Industries at all. Members of the commission, Maya began, her voice carrying the hard-won confidence of someone who'd survived public humiliation and emerged stronger. The Riverside development represents more than just construction. It's proof that community-focused design can succeed without sacrificing innovation or profit. She'd modified her original plans, incorporating feedback from 3 months of community meetings. The result was something even more beautiful than her initial vision, a development that truly served the people who would live there, not just the investors who would profit from it. The numbers speak for themselves, Maya continued, pulling up her financial projections. Sustainable design, community integration, local business support create long-term value that far exceeds traditional development models. From the corner of her eye, she spotted familiar dark hair in the back of the room. Ethan sat in the last row, nearly hidden behind a city councilman, but she'd have recognized those shoulders anywhere. He'd been at every public meeting, every community forum, watching her rebuild her dreams from the ashes of their destroyed relationship. They hadn't spoken since that morning in his penthouse. The Blackwood board had indeed terminated her contract, citing conflicts of interest and reputational concerns. Thomas Blackwood Sr. had made it clear that she was persona non grata in corporate circles. Her name whispered with scandal and speculation. But Maya had discovered something liberating. In losing everything, freedom. Freedom from the need to please boards of old men who saw her as either a threat or a conquest. Freedom to build the kind of architecture that actually mattered, with partners who valued her vision over her gender or her past. "The commission will now hear public comments," the chairwoman announced. Maya watched as community members stood to speak in support of her project. Mrs. Chen, whose family had run a corner market in the neighborhood for 30 years. James Murphy, the contractor who'd been injured in the accident, now fully recovered and working as her site supervisor. Carmen, who'd become Maya's partner when 2 other firms tried to poach her with offers that tripled her salary. Then Ethan stood up. Maya's breath caught as he walked to the podium, every eye in the room following his movement. "Ah!" The whispers started immediately. What was the Blackwood heir doing at a public planning meeting? "My name is Ethan Blackwood," he began, his voice carrying easily through the room. 3 months ago, my company had the opportunity to work with Ms. Rodriguez on this project. We chose not to move forward due to concerns that had nothing to do with her qualifications or vision. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. What was he doing? "I've spent the past 3 months watching Ms. Rodriguez turn what could have been a devastating professional setback into something extraordinary. She's created a development model that prioritizes community needs without sacrificing architectural excellence or financial viability. More than that, she's proven that sometimes the best business decisions aren't the safe ones." Ethan's eyes found hers across the crowded room. The Riverside development doesn't need Blackwood Industries, but Blackwood Industries desperately needs architects like Maya Rodriguez, visionaries who understand that true legacy isn't built in boardrooms but in communities. He paused, his gaze steady on hers. "Which is why I'm here today to publicly announce Blackwood Industries' commitment to sustainable development practices. Beginning with our partnership with Rodriguez Architecture on 3 upcoming projects in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx." The room erupted. Porters shouted questions, commissioners demanded order, and Maya felt the world tilt sideways. Ethan was offering her everything she'd dreamed of: recognition, financial security, and the chance to revolutionize urban development in New York. But more than that, he was choosing her. Publicly, professionally, and completely. The meeting dissolved into controlled chaos as the commission voted to approve Maya's Riverside development proposal. She found herself surrounded by congratulations, handshakes, and interview requests. But her eyes kept searching for Ethan. She found him outside the building, leaning against his car in the early evening light. "That was quite a speech, Maya," said, approaching cautiously. Ethan's smile was rueful. "I've been practicing it for 3 months. 3 months of watching me rebuild my career while you stayed silent. 3 months of learning that sometimes love means letting someone prove they don't need you before asking them to want you anyway." The word hung between them like a bridge. Love. Not attraction, not convenience, not scandal. Love. "Ethan," Maya began, but he held up a hand. "I know what you're going to say. That this complicates things. That people will talk. That mixing business with personal feelings is dangerous." "Actually," Maya said, stepping closer, "I was going to say that it took you long enough." The surprise on his face was worth 3 months of heartbreak. Maya reached up, framing his face with her hands the way he'd done to her that night in the hospital parking lot. "I've spent 3 months proving I could succeed without you," she said softly. "Now I'd like to find out what we could build together." When Ethan kissed her this time, there were no cameras, no scandals, no hidden agendas. Just 2 people who'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the most necessary one. "Partnership," Ethan murmured against her lips. "Professional and personal, equal partners," Maya corrected. "In everything," agreed. As they stood there in the fading light, Maya thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. The accidental meeting, the professional collision, the public destruction, and the private rebuilding. It hadn't been the love story she'd imagined, but it was theirs. And sometimes, the best architecture came from building on the strongest foundation. 2 people who chose each other not out of need, but out of the knowledge that together they could create something neither could achieve alone. 6 months later, Maya stood in the first completed building of the Riverside development. Watching families move into homes designed with love, built with integrity, and sustained by community. Through the window, she could see Ethan talking with Mrs. Chen about the corner market that would anchor the development's main plaza. Her phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. The Times wants to interview you about the New York model of development. Also, Architectural Digest wants you. For their cover story? And your mother called to say she saw you on the news and she's proud of you? Maya smiled, tucking the phone away without responding. All of that could wait. Right now, she was exactly where she belonged, in a building she'd designed, watching a community she'd helped create come to life. With the man she loved working beside her to build something that mattered. Ethan caught her eye through the window and smiled. The same devastating smile that had haunted her dreams and nightmares for months. But now it held something different, the promise of a future they were building together, one choice at a time. Maya had learned that sometimes the biggest risks led to the greatest rewards. Sometimes falling into the wrong room led you to exactly the right person. And sometimes the kiss you thought was just a dream turned out to be the beginning of everything real. She walked outside to join Ethan, her heels clicking against the sidewalk they'd designed to encourage neighbors to linger, to talk, to become community. As she reached him, he held out his hand. "Ready to go home, partner?" he asked. Maya took his hand, feeling the solid warmth of his fingers interlacing with hers. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was this, the choice to keep choosing each other every single day. "Ready?" she said. And as they walked away from the building that had changed everything, Maya knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together. After all, the best architecture wasn't about creating perfect structures. It was about building something strong enough to weather any storm. The end.